It's New York State Comptroller Tom DiNapoli joining us on the Talk of the Town. How are you, sir?
I am good. It's great to be on Talk of the Town.
Good morning.
And we've been talking about a number of topics this morning on the air, first of which is the New York Mets. Are you a Mets or Yankees fan, or do you not care about baseball?
Well, I am a New York fan, so when we're down to the World Series and we've got a New York team in there, whether it's the Mets or the Yankees, I'm for them. And being a Long Islander, you know, we're in very close proximity to Citi Field. So going back to the beginning of that franchise, a lot of Long Islanders are very loyal to the Mets. So we're proud of how far they've come. Last night was a little bit of a setback, but there's plenty of time to go for them to pull this out.
Sure. Governor Cuomo made some news with his offer of tickets to big-time donors to come join him at Games 3 and 4 of the World Series back at Citi Field. These tickets he's selling for $5,500 each. Some people are calling it scalping and unethical. What do you think about that?
Well, I'm not sure that those are the right ways to characterize it. Suffice to say, I'm not buying one of those tickets nor by holding a similar event. I think it underscores, though, the fact that unfortunately, especially for statewide office, where it is such an expensive proposition to run a campaign, we have a system relying on private donations, which have too many of us spending too much time raising money and less time doing the governing part, which is one reason why I've been a very strong advocate for public financing of our elections, certainly starting with the statewide offices. I'd like to see it for the legislative races as well. If you have a program where you encourage small donations, not the $5,000, $6,000, or you can donate now. I think the limits are now over $40,000 in terms of what someone could contribute to a statewide office. If instead you encourage small donations, match that money, you would encourage more competition. You level the playing field. You don't require people running for office to spend so much time raising money. So then you don't get to those questions of scalping or how much time you're spending on fundraising. So I understand he's got to do what he's got to do, but we need to have a better system. I think that would start to restore a little more confidence among voters that people are running for office looking out for the good of the people and not for the interest of donors.
Also, Attorney General of New York State Eric Schneiderman recently calling for a study of those fantasy sports outfits that apparently indulging in some wrongdoing behind the scenes. What do you know about that? Is that a problem for New York State?
Well, it's an emerging area, and you saw the other day in Nevada and Vegas they were calling this gambling. So they were raising questions. So if a place like Nevada, where they tend to be a little more free wheeling on these matters, are expressing concerns. I think the Attorney General is right. There obviously are nuances of law here that is appropriate for his office to investigate. I think another concern that I would have, on this whole area, if it's going to be considered legal and happening, depending on where the business is located, there are tax implications in terms of revenue that could be coming to New York State. So I think this is an area that's kind of new and somewhat, some of the sports writers and columnists have been writing about this over the past couple of months, but it almost seems like suddenly it's elevated to a whole new level in terms of people seeing just how far-reaching, these games are right now. Look, with technology, it's changing the whole map. So we have to look at current law. Maybe current law has to be changed. Maybe they are violating current law. What are the tax implications, for this? And of course, it gets back to that whole bigger question, which is, how much gaming or gambling can we tolerate in our society? And obviously there's been a move more and more in that direction. I'm not sure at the end of the day that all that is going to be good, for families, but obviously those that want to figure out a way to make money and provide an entertainment that is also lucrative. These fantasy games are now the newest wave, and it's just raising all kinds of questions about legality and tax implications that we have to look at. So I encourage the Attorney General, and we'll look forward to see what he comes up with out of this.
I'm talking with New York State Comptroller Tom DiNapoli at 100.7 FM WUTQ.
Comptroller, you mentioned contributions, and I actually been touting you over the past few weeks here of the idea that you don't take those private donations as an official here in New York State. Is that correct? And you may be one of the only ones.
Well, we limit it. It wouldn't be fair to say that we don't take them. Remember, I came into office because my predecessor ran into a little bit of trouble, and ultimately ended up in prison. And much of that had to do with the management of the pension fund and placement agents, the middlemen, if you will, between investment firms and the public pension fund. And what we called for is an end to pay to play, because traditionally for this office, most of the folks that would contribute were people that had business in the office in terms of the pension fund. It's a lot of money. We have over $180 billion in our pension fund. It's a lot of money that people would like to have access to manage. And that's where there was a real compromise on many levels in terms of the office. So we put out early on an announcement that we were not going to take money from people who are doing business with the office. Those would be private donations from people in finance. And we called on the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission that regulates in this area, to really make this a standard that should apply to all pension funds. So we were ahead of the curve. Fortunately, the SEC actually has adopted this requirement as well. So it doesn't make it easy to raise money because, control is not exactly the office that many people think about to give money. It's not viewed in the same way as, running for, senator or governor or legislature even. So it's made it a little more of a challenge. But, fortunately, in the past, while I don't certainly amass the kinds of money that other people do, we've had enough money to get our message out. But we have limited what we take, and I think that's the only way we can protect the integrity of how we manage the pension fund, because, our office suffered a tremendous reputational harm with what happened during my predecessor's time. And, when you're talking about public pension funds, that's taxpayer money. It's a public employee money. It should be put for only one purpose, and investment decisions should only be made for the benefit of the fund, not because someone is anticipating a contribution, because of a relationship there. So, again, the only way I think you can really maybe can't eliminate, but certainly severely limit the impact of private donations from anybody or any PAC is to have a public financing system where you put a very low limit in terms of how much money you could raise from any one individual or entity, put a limit on how much money can be spent on campaigns. We spend so much money on campaigns. The people who make out of the advertisers and the political consultants, I don't think it serves the public interest with the way we finance elections these days. And I know some people don't like the idea of public financing, but I haven't seen a better system, and I think that's the one that could really start to restore some competitiveness and a little more integrity in terms of how we run our elections.
Sure, and you touched on that, and I think the idea is the folks that do business with the state, and I know there's some concern about some of the contributions for the governor coming out of the Buffalo region with some of the folks that have contributed to his campaign.
Yeah, I mean, again, it gets back to the basic question. If you're going to have elections to be financed by private donations, you could place even more limits as to who could give. You reach, though, a certain point where unless someone is independently wealthy and they can put their own millions in, and I've had that experience in 2010 with the person who ran against me, you really are going to make it harder and harder for there to be competition in races. So I'm all for limiting and certain disclosure, first of all, but you really do have to come up with a smarter way to come up with the resources of people to run an election, and that goes, even people talk about the state legislature and all these senators, assembly people have gotten in trouble over the past couple of years. Well, one of the real answers to this, we just need more good people, everyday people wanting to run for these offices. People don't, and one of the reasons that I hear very often is that people say, "Oh, gee, I don't have the money for it," or "I'm not connected. I don't have that network of fundraisers who could back me." Money becomes a big impediment for people feeling that they have access to run for public office. And unless we have more people, good people just wanting to do the right thing, running for office, I think you're going to have a smaller and smaller pool of people serving in these positions, and probably more likely to have the kinds of issues that we've had with some of the folks over the past few years. So we need more competition. We need more people participating, and money should not be a barrier to that. And I think a campaign finance reform that limits contributions and allows for a matching system that encourages small donors to enable public financing, that's the only solution that makes any sense to me.
Great. Thanks for spending some time with us this morning, Comptroller.
Hope we get to do it again, guys.
Great. It's Tom DiNapoli on the Talk of the Town, 100.7 FM, WUTQ.